Joe Gibbs Racing is perhaps the most reputed team in NASCAR. They're well known for their professionalism and high-quality performances and facilities. However, recently the team has been caught in a huge scandal, which will now be a top priority for Joe Gibbs Racing. NASCAR is not a cheap sport to get into. It takes millions of dollars to run a NASCAR team. Hence, the teams look at every single way to earn money in this sport. But a Joe Gibbs Racing employee might have taken this a bit too far. Recently, it was realized that an engineer for JGR has been sharing the team's data with other teams in the series. While sharing information between two teams is not uncommon in this sport, as long as there's a formal agreement between the teams, it is understood the information was shared to a team with no agreement in place. It seems as though the engineer had shared the information with other teams in return for payment. The employee in question has reportedly been looking for a way out of JGR for the past few months. The engineer has been in contact with other NASCAR teams for a possible shift in workplace. So it's possible that the JGR employee leaked the information to other teams, hoping that it would help his chances of joining that team permanently. And you can permanently join the best NASCAR community on YouTube by just hitting that subscribe button. We'll keep you updated with the best and latest news. You won't regret it. It's understood that the team the information has been shared to is not a part of the 2024 playoffs, and hence is not in direct competition with JGR. While entering the semifinals, JGR needs to focus up and try to have one of their drivers get in the Cup Series title. However, their focus will now be shifted to the employee who has just betrayed them for a few quick bucks. The revelation of a Joe Gibbs Racing, or JGR, employee handing out classified setup information to rival teams not involved in the NASCAR playoffs would be a severe breach of competitive integrity, with far-reaching consequences for the sport, the team, and the employee. NASCAR is a sport built on fair competition, where the balance between skill, technology, and teamwork is carefully regulated. Sharing internal setup data, particularly during the highly competitive playoffs, undermines this fairness. Setup information such as suspension settings, aerodynamic tweaks, and tire pressures can provide a competitive advantage, allowing a non-playoff team to outperform or disrupt those still vying for a championship. It could shift the dynamics of races unfairly, affecting playoff drivers and teams that have worked within the rules. For JGR, one of the most respected teams in NASCAR, this breach is a serious internal failure. It raises questions about internal security and the integrity of their operations. The fallout could include penalties from NASCAR, both financial and in terms of championship points. More importantly, it could lead to a loss of trust between JGR and the governing body, sponsors, and even within the team itself. The reputation of the team, which includes top-tier drivers like Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Ty Gibbs, would take a significant hit. For sponsors, any hint of unethical behavior can be damaging to brand partnerships, resulting in financial losses or strained relationships. NASCAR would likely launch an immediate investigation to understand the full scope of the leak. Penalties could be severe, especially if it is proven that the information provided had an impact on race outcomes. Potential penalties could range from fines and suspensions to more extreme measures such as disqualifying the implicated teams from current or future races. In some cases, NASCAR could implement stricter regulations around team communications and data handling to prevent future incidents. The employee responsible would face severe consequences, including termination from JGR and possibly being blacklisted from working with other teams in the future. NASCAR may also enhance its rules regarding data sharing and handling, making it harder for setup information to be leaked. For rival teams, even if they did not actively solicit the information, accepting it would bring their ethics into question and potentially result in penalties as well. With the playoffs underway, any disruption caused by this leak could have serious consequences for the championship battle. If the leak influenced race outcomes, it could result in unfair eliminations or advantages, distorting the natural course of the playoffs. NASCAR would need to act swiftly to mitigate this and ensure the integrity of the competition is preserved. When it comes to who the information has been sold to, there's one working theory: Richard Childress Racing. During the first half of the 2024 season, RCR's pace was absolutely terrible. The team had close to zero chances of making the playoffs, but when the teams came back to racing after the summer break, RCR were all of a sudden quick again. In their first race back in NASCAR, Austin Dillon was able to win the race in Richmond. However, NASCAR stripped his playoff eligibility, as there was enough evidence suggesting that he had intentionally taken out two drivers to secure the race win. But despite his unsportsmanlike behavior, there was no question that RCR had a sudden boost in performance. Even Kyle Busch got some promising results in the next few races. Out of the final 3 races of the season, Busch finished second in 2 of them and fourth in the other. Could they have gotten this pace from Joe Gibbs Racing's engineer? this could very well be a possibility. Back when Austin Dillon clinched his controversial race win, even Ty Gibbs, the driver of JGR's number 54 car, said that he's not sure where RCR suddenly got their pace from. Definitely question where they got all that speed from as well, right? They haven't been running good at all, now all of a sudden they're super fast. So definitely curious on that, Gibbs said. Given that Kyle Busch used to be a part of the JGR squad, it's not a very wild assumption to think that RCR had been gaining info unethically. RCR themselves are quite popular for cutting corners to get results. Back during the controversial race win for Austin Dillon, the teams themselves ordered Dillon to wreck the other drivers beside him. Richard Childress also had no problem with making this call. So it's very well possible that Childress himself would have authorized his people to pay for the information from the JGR employee. While this has been highlighted recently, NASCAR cannot take any action for now. Since NASCAR and the teams are all private organizations, there are not too many regulations restricting teams to not share info. In fact, JGR has an agreement with 2311 Racing to have the Jordan-owned teams sit down in JGR's team briefings. But NASCAR can get involved in this matter if a team files a lawsuit or a complaint. In this scenario, NASCAR will step in to analyze if the JGR employee was sharing the information with JGR's permission or without it. If JGR told the engineer to share info without an agreement in place, NASCAR could penalize JGR as it falls under unfair practices. If JGR had no knowledge about their employee sharing info, JGR would be off the hook. However, NASCAR can fine and ban the employee from working with any team associated with this sport. Given the facts in this case, the JGR employee mostly acted alone and the team itself did not authorize the engineer to share info. If this is the case, the employee is going to have a hard time looking for another job. There's no doubt that he will no longer be a part of the JGR team. But not only that, but the other teams will also not want to hire someone who's not trustworthy. And someone who is willing to betray their own team is probably the most untrustworthy person in NASCAR. A lot has been said here, but let's quickly summarize. Joe Gibbs Racing is facing a major scandal after an engineer was caught sharing the team's classified setup data with another NASCAR team, reportedly in exchange for payment. The engineer, who had been seeking a way out of JGR, allegedly leaked the information to a team not involved in the 2024 playoffs. This breach of trust and competitive integrity is a serious issue for JGR, which is known for its professionalism. NASCAR could impose penalties if the situation affected race outcomes or if the data sharing violated rules. One theory suggests that Richard Childress Racing, or RCR, may have benefited from the leaked information, as their performance suddenly improved after the summer break. Austin Dillon's controversial win at Richmond, which was later stripped, and Kyle Busch's recent strong finishes raised suspicions. Ty Gibbs, a JGR driver, even questioned RCR's sudden speed increase. Although NASCAR has not yet taken action, it may investigate further if a complaint or lawsuit is filed. If JGR had no knowledge of the engineer's actions, the employee would likely face termination and be blacklisted from future work in NASCAR, as no team would want to hire someone who betrayed their own organization. The leak of JGR's setup data would be a highly damaging scandal, undermining fair play in the playoffs and raising questions about internal controls within NASCAR teams. The repercussions would be felt both on and off the track, potentially altering the course of the season and sparking long-term changes to how teams manage sensitive information. Who do you think JGR's setup information was shared to? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.